Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Not missiles, but microbes. Now, part of the reason for this is that we have invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. We're not ready for the next epidemic.
At least 6 people have died in an outbreak of the new coronavirus, which has now reached the United States. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has confirmed the first U.S. case has been detected in Washington state. The patient, who is in isolation, recently returned from Wuhan, China, where the SARS-like respiratory illness was first detected last month.
A newly identified coronavirus that emerged in the city of Wuhan in central China is now known to be transmissible between people. There have been a number of deaths reported and hundreds of infections around the country, and the number of confirmed cases outside China is growing. But what is a coronavirus? There are many coronaviruses found in animals, but only about 6 are known to affect humans. The strain discovered in Wuhan has been found to cause severe lung disease. The first reported human infections were among people who visited the seafood and meat wholesale market in the city. It has since been closed by health officials. Only a block away from one of Wuhan's major train stations, the market reportedly sold a range of animal meat, including peacocks, koalas, Chinese giant salamanders, masked palm civets, and bamboo rats.
The NBA has decided to suspend game played following the conclusion of tonight's games. Now, during the hiatus of the suspension, they'll figure out and try to determine what the next steps will be. But the word that just came out just moments ago is the NBA is going to temporarily suspend the season from now. Who knows what's going to happen going forward? Reportedly, Rudy Gobert has tested positive for the coronavirus. That was obviously one of the reasons why that Utah-Oklahoma City game was suspended.
To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency. 2 very big words. The action I am taking will open up access to up to $50 billion of very important and a large amount of money for states and territories and localities in our shared fight against this disease.
If I get corona, I get corona. At the end of the day, I'm not going to let it stop me from partying. You know, we've been waiting for Miami spring break for a while. About 2 months we've had this trip planned. 2-3 months. So we're just out here having a good time. Whatever happens, happens.
Like, it's really messing up with my spring break. What is there to do here other than go to the bars or the beach, and they're closing all of it? It's really messing up. I think they're blowing it way out of proportion. I think it's doing way too much.
Doing us bad. We need a refund. This virus ain't that serious. It's serious. It's more serious things out there like hunger and poverty, and we need to address that.
Yeah, I mean, we planned this a long time ago and it was kind of up in the air if we still go, but like we're here, I just turned 21 this year, so I'm here to party, so it's kind of disappointing, but we're just making the most of it. We met these other people in our little Airbnb spot, so we're just hanging out with them and trying to get drunk before everything closes.
But we want to begin right now with the latest headlines. The number of cases in the U.S. jumped again overnight to at least 102,000, with 1,600 deaths now. The U.S. now has more reported cases than any other country in the world. Nearly 45,000 of those cases are in New York State.
If the flu has an R0 of 1.3, that means each person gets either 1 or 2 people sick. After 10 rounds, that's 56 total people. And if we run the model with COVID-19's R0 at 2, if one person with it gets 2 people sick who get 2 people sick, after 10 rounds, that's more than 2,000 people. This does not happen with the flu, because COVID-19 is very different, and understanding how is crucial to understanding how dangerous it really is, and why we have to take it so seriously.
And it all started here, in Daegu, where a woman went to the hospital with a fever. Because the government had already equipped hospitals with coronavirus tests, doctors were able to test her. She tested positive and became known as Patient 31. But the testing didn't stop there. While she was sick, Patient 31 had gone to a megachurch where she sat with a congregation of hundreds for more than an hour. So they traced her movements, identified people she had come into contact with, and then tested those people as well, whether they showed symptoms or not. Many of them also tested positive, so they were quickly isolated and treated at home or at a center. And then all the people they had been in contact with were traced and tested too. This is called contact tracing. It's an approach that allowed Korea to test over 9,000 people who had been in contact with someone who had tested positive.
What can we learn from South Korea and how effectively they broadly tested, and are beginning to reopen?
Well, I think you just said it there, Andrea. I mean, one of the things they did was they did widespread testing. So they've tested 2 to 3 more people per capita in South Korea than they have here in the United States. And they, as you mentioned in your piece, they have a surplus of masks and test kits that they're now exporting abroad because they've met all the domestic demand. And they never really had to lock down and shut down like we're doing now because they moved fairly early. Basically, right after the crisis, almost right after the crisis, they declared a national emergency about a month before the United States did.
America is now the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic.
America has passed the grim milestone of 20,500 deaths to overtake Italy as the world's worst hit nation.
Many blame the president for the scale of the crisis.
These are the lonely times for a president. All the decisions come to you, and he's made just about all of them wrong.
But the causes of America's failings in dealing with the virus run far deeper.
Independent of Donald Trump, America is a country that always would have found fighting a pandemic to be difficult, regardless of who the president was.
There may be 100 or so protesters here, and in similar small protests across the country, millions of Americans are staying at home, and they don't want restrictions to be lifted.
Most people know the virus itself will determine when normality can resume. These protests are being amplified by right-wing media and the president himself.
Virginia, arise! Liberate Virginia!
After Fox News aired a protest, Donald Trump tweeted his support just a day after issuing measured guidelines about the cautious path states should take before reopening. The experts say Virginia is in no position to do what these people are asking.
The US has now recorded more than 1 million COVID-19 cases. That's almost a third of the global total. More than 58,000 people have died in America. Here's President Trump a short time ago.
You have to understand, when it comes to cases, we do much more testing than anybody else. So we could go to some of these other countries, as an example, China. If you test, you're going to show many more cases. So we're doing more testing than any other country in the world by far, which we just discussed over in the Oval Office. So we're going to show more cases because we're doing much, much more testing, double anybody else.